Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to talk about what are files, how to handle files in Python. So when we talk about files, files are used to store data permanently on a medium. Through Python, we can open the files, we can process the file, and we can read the data from the files. So let's see how to deal with files in Python. So as I said, files are used to store data permanently on a medium which you can use later in your program. Now, when we deal with files in Python, there are basically three operations that we do. What do? We write data to a file, or let's say we open the file. We open the file, we process the file, and we close the file. Okay. So there are three operations basically that we do with files. First is opening the file, processing the file, and close the file. Now, when we open the file, file can be opened in read mode, file can be opened in write mode, and file can be opened in append mode. So we're going to see these three operations with file. So reading means reading data from a file. So if my file, let's say this is my file, any file that you have, let's say this is my file, okay? So reading that data from the file and displaying it on the screen is what does it mean by reading the file? Writing the file means writing the data to a file, okay? Append Append means you have already written data into your file and you're going to add some more data into a file. Adding more data into a file is what is append. So there are basically three modes in which the file work: read, write, and append. And we're going to see how to make use of these, how to open, read, and write the file using these three modes. So the way it works is, if you want to, let's take an example of how to write data to a file. Okay, write data to a file. So you create a file object. Let's say I'm going to create one variable out file. Use the keyword open. Write down the name of the file. So this name of the file will create this file. So let's say I'm going to write it as names.txt. And because I want to write the data, I'm going to say W here. Okay. So the syntax is you write let's say a file variable name equals to, open is the keyword that you use. You write the file name, okay, with whatever extension you have. So I have used names.txt. You can use any file. You can open maybe CSV file, or you can open any other file, okay? So, and then mode. Okay, so file variable name equals to open file name and then mode. So similarly here, what did I wrote? I wrote names.txt, which is the name of the file that it is going to create, and it is going to create in a write mode. Okay. So then I want to write data to my file. So I'm gonna say out file dot write. Okay. And let's say I'll just write some names. Let's say John. Okay. And then again out file dot write. I'm gonna add one more data, that is Henry, and I'm gonna add one more data. That is, let's say, Tia. Okay, so I wrote three names to my file, and the other operation that you're going to do is you're going to close the file. Okay, if you do not close the file, either it is not going to save the data to a file or it will not operate properly. So after this, you're going to save it in whatever folder, whichever is your working directory. So my working directory is here. So I'm going to save it here, and I'm going to save it as file demo2. Okay. Now, I'm going to add one more thing over here after the closing the file, just to indicate that my data is being written to the file. So I'm going to save, I'm just going to say the print statement. So I'm going to use the print statement, and I'm going to say data return to the return file. Okay. So let's say I'm going to run this code. And here it says data written to the file. But where is the file? So to see the file, what you have to do is you go to your working directory. My working directory was this one. Okay. So herein, if you'll see, this names2.txt is being created. Now I'm going to click on this and see. Okay, I don't think this was the name of the file. Let me see what was the name of my file. My name of file was names.txt. Excuse me. So I'm gonna, okay. Now see, this names is being saved over here, John Henry Tia. But now if you'll see, the names is not saved in a readable manner, right? It's not readable. To make it more readable, the way I would like to store is, I would like to write it like this, John Henry and Tia. I want it like this, okay? And if you'll notice, this is basically a notepad file, okay? So let's see how to do that. So I'm gonna say, let's see, I'm just closed it. And now I'm gonna go again here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna write it as /n. Okay, now what does the /n do? The /n take the cursor to a new line. It's called as an escape sequence. And we have seen example of these in the previous module, especially during the menu-driven programming. So the /n is going to take it to a new line, right? Now let's save it, let's run it, and let's go to the working directory and check. So here in names.txt is my file, and now see, John Henry Tia is being written over here, right? Okay, so now let's go back to the program and let's see what happens if I want to add more data. Okay, so let's say I want to add, I added John Henry Tia, and now I'm going to add Joseph, and let's say Jacob, and Joseph, Jacob, let's say Jennifer. Okay, now let's run the code. Okay, let's go to the working directory, open that file. And Joseph, Jacob, Jennifer is written, but what happens to the data that I had stored earlier before this, that is John, Henry, and Tia? There's no data in the file now, right? That data is being erased with the new data. So whenever you whenever you open the file in the write mode, what it do is it creates a new file and it erases the data that was previously stored and replaces that data with the new data that you're writing into the file. So the same thing has happened here. Earlier I had John, Henry, Tia, but now when I added Joseph, Jacob, Jennifer, it erased John, Henry, Tia with Joseph, Jacob, and Jennifer. Okay, because we are using it in the write mode. Now, if you want the previous data to be stored as well, what you do is you put it into an append mode. So instead of W, I'm going to write it as A. Okay, we call it as append. Append means adding more data. Okay, so herein, let's change the name and let's say Will. And I'm going to name as maybe Gus and Noel. Okay, now run the code. Okay, it says data written to the file, so my code is executed properly. Now let's go here and let's go to the working directory, which is this one. Open this names.txt. And if you'll see, this data is there, Joseph, Jacob, Jennifer, Will, Gus, Noel. So because I have used the append mode, it is adding every time when I run the code, it adds that data. Not like earlier where it was erasing the data and was replacing it with another data, right? So that is the difference between the write and the append. So append adds the data to a file instead of erasing the previously stored data. Okay, now let's see how to read data from a file and print it on the screen. So I'm going to say read data from the file. Okay, now similar to this, we are going to open the file for reading, and then what we're going to do, we're going to extract the data, or we're going to retrieve the data that was stored in the file and we're going to print it on the screen. Let me show you how. So herein, I'm again going to create a file variable. I'm gonna say, it could be, you could give any name. You don't have to necessarily give out file and in file as names to your file variable. You can use any name. So I'm gonna say open, and I'm gonna open the same file. Remember that the file names should match, okay? Otherwise, it's gonna give error that the file is not found. And I'm gonna do it in the read mode, right? And I'm gonna convert this A to back to W because I don't want to append more data. So I just write it as W. I'm gonna open it in the read mode, and there are two ways. Either you can use a while loop or you can use a for loop. So I'm gonna show you how you're gonna use a for loop. So I'm gonna say for each line in file, okay? You remember how does the for loop? I hope you remember how does the for loop works, right? It iterates through each line in a sequence and will print that line, right? So for each line in file, in this file, okay, wherein all the data from the file is stored. So I'm gonna say print this line, okay? And after you're done with this, what you're gonna do, you're gonna close the file. So I'm gonna say in file dot close. Okay, remember that you have to always close the file. Okay, now let's see. So my file basically is this one, which stores Joseph, Jacob, Jennifer, Will, Gus, Noel. And okay, let me put it in the append mode only because yeah, let's see this. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna comment this because my file already exists, right? So I'm just gonna print the data from the file, okay, already existing file. So now I'm gonna run it and see Joseph, Jacob, Jennifer, Will, Gus, Noel. The data that was there in this file, right, is being retrieved and is printed on the console, right? How we printed in on the console? What did I do? I first open the file names.txt in the read mode. I use the for loop to iterate through each line in the file, and I printed each line. That's it. So that's how you read a file and you write data into a file. Now you might be wondering, why did I commented this? Well, it will work even if I don't comment it. But if you'll see to my file, this data will again get added. Okay, why it is giving me an error? Okay. Okay, append. Okay. So now see, now it will print Jacob, Jennifer, Will, Gus, Noel, and these names will also be appended. Okay, let me change these names. Let me add more names. So let's say Mila, Akhil, and okay. So let's run this, and now my file will be consisted of Jacob, Jennifer, Will, Gus, Noel, Mila, Akhil, Anand. And those names should be printed on the console. So let's see, I'm gonna run this. Okay. Oh, okay. My bad. I used the write mode, not the append mode. So because of it, what happened is whatever data was there is being erased and is replaced with Mila, Akhil, Anand. So if you'll see your file here, that is names.txt, the data is Mila, Akhil, Anand, right? See the magic of append, right? And W. So W erased the previously stored data, right? Okay, so that's how your files work. Now, if you'll see herein, I am manually entering the name, okay? Now, I don't want to manually enter the name. I want the names from the user, okay? I'm gonna tell, let's say I want to store a phone book, okay? Or I want to create a book with the names of my friends. So in that case, I'm gonna ask the user to enter the names and I'm gonna store it into a file. And that is a very common application of file, by the way. Okay. So herein, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the user to enter the number of friends. So I'm going to say enter number of friends. I'm going to say equals to integer input, and I'm going to say enter number of friends, right? Okay, and after that, okay, let me move this here. Okay, enter the number of friends, and herein I'm going to use a for loop. So I'm going to say for I in range 1 to number of friends plus 1. Why plus 1? I'm going to explain it in a bit. Okay, so for I in range 1 to number of friends plus 1, and I'm going to ask the user to enter the name of the friend. So I'm going to say name equals to, and I'm going to say input. Let's say f string. So I'm going to say enter the name of friend, F-R-I-E-N-D, like this and this. Okay, so what is it going to do? It's going to ask the user enter the name of friend I. I means it is in the range 1 to number of friends. So let's say the user says number of friends is 3. Okay. Now, so here in cursor, the execution comes here and it says for I in, what is the range of I? 1, 2, number of friends. So means 1, comma 3. It's going to generate numbers from 1 to 2. Okay, because 3 is excluded in the range function. So to include the 3, I just wrote it as 1 to number of friends plus 1. So whatever the user says, plus 1. So in that case, it will be, the for loop will iterate from 1 to 3. Okay. So now, herein, what is it going to do? I is 1 in first iteration, 2 in second iteration, and 3 in third iteration. Right? So the number, that's how the I is going to vary. Now what you want to do, you want to write it into the file. So I'm gonna say my out file dot write. What do you want to write? I want to write the name, okay? But you want to write it on a new line every time. So I'm gonna say plus slash n, or you don't have to even say, okay, I'll say plus slash n. Okay, and what do you do after that? You close the file. So I'm gonna close the file. Okay, now see again, I open the file. Okay, I'm gonna comment this line. So I create a file variable out file. I open the file. The name of the file is names.txt. Okay, and I opened it into a write mode. I asked the user to enter the number of friends. Whatever will be the number of friends, I want it to ask and enter into a file. Now see, let me run this code. Okay, enter the number of friends. I'm gonna say I want, okay, 5 will be too much. I'll say 3 friends. So enter the name of friend 1. See, it is following this F string. Enter the name of friend 1, right? So let's say the name of friend 1 is Jacob. Okay, enter the name of friend 2, Joseph. Enter the name of friend 3, Jennifer. Okay, and data written to the file, and here is how it is reading data. Okay, my reading the data file will remain same. You get it? So this is how the files can be used in Python. It is used to write data to a file and read data from a file. Okay, now when we store numbers in a file, it behaves in a different manner. Okay, let's see an example of how to store numbers in a file. And if I want to process those numbers, how do we do that as well? Okay, so herein I'm gonna erase the whole code, and we're gonna see how to use numbers with file. Okay, so again, I'm gonna create one file. Okay, I'm gonna just say numbers dot txt. Okay, Let me see if I already have that. Okay, so I'm gonna remove this for now. Okay. Okay. So numbers.txt, and I'm gonna use it in a write mode for now. Okay. I'm gonna ask the user to enter the numbers. So number of times, let's say. Okay, or total numbers, right? Okay, so I'm gonna say total numbers equals to, and I'm gonna ask the user to enter the numbers he want to enter. Okay, so enter the total numbers. Enter. Okay, and again I'm gonna use a for loop for I in range 1, 2, because I want to get the numbers from the users, from the user. So that's why I'm using a for loop here, okay? And I'm gonna say num equals to input. Again, use f string, similar to the previous program. So enter, I'm gonna say number 1, right? Enter number 1, enter number 2, enter number 3, etc. And then add it or write it to the file, right? So write it to the file, okay? Okay, and once you're done with that, you're gonna close the file. So I'm gonna say outfile.close. And I'm also going to print the data is written. The file. Okay, so let's see. So I created a file numbers.txt. I asked the user how many numbers he want to store into a file. And I'm going to ask the user those many times to enter the number and put it into the file. Okay, now let's see. Now here, and if you'll see, I'm not converting this, even though it is a number, I'm still asking it as an input, and I'm not converting into an integer or a float, okay? Because whenever you store data to a file, it is stored in a string format, okay? So even if I'll ask it as a integer or a float, I'll have to still convert into a string. Now see, if I run this code, okay, there is something wrong, okay? Yeah, here, I did not use the input, okay? Okay, what's wrong? Input. Okay, now let's run the code and enter the total numbers you want to enter. And I'll just say maybe 5 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can write any numbers, okay? So now let's go to the working directory and see numbers.txt is created. I'm gonna open it. I'm gonna see everything is correct, right? The way I want to store it, it is stored in the same way. Okay. Now, let's say I want to write a program to read these numbers and find the sum of these numbers. Okay, that means I want to print 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. That is, 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 plus 3 is 6, 4, 10, and plus 5 is 15. So it should print the addition of the numbers that are stored in the file, right? Okay, let's see how to do that. Okay, so herein, let's write the code for reading the data from the file. Okay, so we know the rule. In file is equals to open. Open, and yeah, name of the file, that is numbers.txt, and I want to open it in the read mode, right? Now, herein, if you will see, okay, first let me show you the normal way, okay? The way we have read the data in the earlier program, in the previous program, right? So herein, I'm going to use the for loop for I in in file. Okay, so for each item in file, I'll print each item, let's say. Okay, and I'm gonna close it. So the next is okay, and herein I'll also print that I'm reading the data. Okay, now see, I'm gonna run this code. Enter the total numbers you want to enter. Let's say 2, and I'm gonna say 12. Maybe 13, and it is working fine, right? But now what I want to do is I want to add these two numbers. Okay, I want to add these two numbers. Now see, we have seen how to add the different numbers, right? First n numbers, we have seen that code while I explained the while loop, right? So let's say I'm going to create a variable total equals to 0. And herein I'm going to say total. Okay, let's print each number, and then I'm going to say total equals to total plus each number in the file, right? I'm going to say print total. Okay, and let's see what happens. Enter the total numbers you want to enter. I'll say 2, 1, 2, and okay. Well, it is giving an error that it is integer and string. Okay, why is it so? Because total is 0. I mean, it's an integer number, okay? But what you stored in a file is a string. Even though it looks like a number, but files store it as a string. So when you're reading it over here, this I, it is always read it as a string. Okay, so to do the arithmetic calculation, it is important that you have to it is important to convert it into either integer or a float value, or just convert it into a number. Okay, so this you will have to take care of while you deal with numbers. Okay, so the way you're going to solve it is, herein, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to say total is equals to 0 for each item in file. What I'm going to do is, when I read a number, I want to convert it into integer, right? Now, the way you convert it into an integer is, let's say I'm going to store one variable, okay? I'm going to do int I. Okay, now herein again there is a problem. What is the problem? We have this slash n as well. So the way it works is, let's say I'm gonna store two numbers. Okay, let's open my file here and let me show you. So this working directory was this one, and the numbers stored, let's say, are 1 and 2, right? But it's not, it though it looks like 1 and 2, but it is stored as 1 plus slash n. Okay, so this slash n is also stored, and you have to remove that slash n from there, okay, to do the addition or subtraction or whatever arithmetic calculation you want to do. Okay, so the way you're going to do it is, you're going to say first line, read the first line. I means first line, second line, third line, right? Read the first line, strip, okay, strip slash n from there, okay? And then you write total equals to total plus num, okay? And you're gonna print it. So I'm gonna say print total is total, right? And then I'm gonna close this file. So I'm gonna say in file dot close. Okay, okay. See, the way it works is, your file contains 1 and 2, for example, okay? So the program execution, so herein, what does it do? I is 1, right? First line in file. So first line is 1. So what will it do? It will read 1 and will remove slash n from there. Okay, that is what the strip do. It will remove the slash n from there, okay? So number contains 1. Now, 1, right? Now what will be the total here? Total will be total plus this 1, right? So total will be total, which is 0 plus 1, that is 1. Next iteration, I is 2, means the second line in the file. So second line in the file, what is second line? 2. Okay, total was 1 in first iteration. Now when I is 2, total will be equals to total plus second number. That is 1 plus 2. And that will be equals to 3. And that is what it will print over here. Okay, so this is same as the program that we have seen when adding the first 10 natural numbers, right? This is very much similar to that program. Let's run this. Enter the total numbers you want to enter. I'll say 5 numbers. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now the program execution comes to reading the data. So for I in file means for first line in that file, which is 1, right? So 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5, and let's, okay. Data is written to the file, reading the data, and total is 15. Let's see. Okay, so here run. My file contains 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now it is printing the total as 1 plus 2, 3 plus 3, 6 plus 4 plus 10, and 5, 15, right? Let's run it one more time and check, okay? So this time I'm gonna put, let's say, okay, 3 numbers, and let's say 12 plus 2, that is 14, plus 3, plus 4, okay? So 12 plus 2, 14 plus 4, 18, and it is printing correctly, right? So that's how you read the data from a file, and you write the, you write the data into a file, you read the data from a file, and we have also seen the append operation, okay? And also seen how to make use of for loop with the file while reading and while entering the data into a file. So you can easily create a phone book or maybe a birthday book, right? Okay, so that's how we use files in Python. And thank you for watching. Happy coding.